welcome back to my channel. So I'm going to carry on reviewing Girls and Autism. Getting towards the end now. It's a massive book, and that's why I've had to devote so many videos to it, because there's so much to cover. Thank you again for all your comments, which I enjoyed reading, and thank you also to all my subscribers and all the new subscribers as well. Thank you. I very much appreciate it when you subscribe, so thank you so much. Okay, so I'm going to carry on from where I left off last week, when the video ran out of me, and I'd got up to page 130 in the book Girls and Autism, Educational, Family and Personal Perspectives, edited by Barry Carpenter, Francesca Happe and Joe Egerton. I got up to the bit where I was talking about bullying, which is where the camera video stopped on me last time. The chapter by Felicity Sedgwick, who's an autism academic, on friendships, and I was saying how her research has shown that autistic kids with high levels of social skill may be more likely to be bullied. Those with more internalising behaviours, so those who are more quiet and anxious, are more bullied than those who display externalising behaviours. And she was saying how autistic girls, on average, tend to internalise and also maybe have slightly better social skills than autistic boys. And I was saying how, in my experience, when I was at school growing up, when I was at primary school, I tended to be a bit more external in how in my behaviour. I didn't have any understanding whatsoever that I was different. That understanding didn't sort of seep into my awareness until I gradually came to some understanding that I was different at the very end of primary school, but I didn't really kind of question it. I didn't delve deep into why I was different. It didn't affect my sense of who I was. I was pretty self-assured in just being, I guess. I was a happy child. I was very full of life. I was very vigorous. I guess just very happy. I had a good childhood. And then when I went to secondary school, I started to become more aware of my differences, and I think that's when it started to first really hit home. And I didn't know why I was different. I blamed my parents. I started to come up with various theories as to why I was different, but it was usually around the idea that my parents hadn't raised me properly, because it's kind of quite easy just to blame your parents. It's an easy, they become a sort of easy object, I guess, of like teenage blame. I think quite a few teenagers do tend to blame their parents for a lot of life's woes anyway. It's a sort of almost like a teenage default position. Oh, if there's something wrong, it must be my parents, kind of thing. But yeah, that's when it first started to affect me. But even then, I didn't think about it too much. It wasn't until actually I left school that it started to really affect me in any really big way, because that's when my awareness really started to set in. I wasn't particularly aware of those sort of things at that age, so I was quite lucky in that respect, because I've heard that some autistics, they're very, very aware, painfully aware of their difference from a really young age, and they get really depressed because of it. And as I said, I was never depressed. I was a very happy, outgoing child, I guess. And yes, although I was anxious, and although I did at times become very quiet and quite, daydreamy and cut off from the world and lacking in confidence, teachers said. Lacking in confidence, I think, and a lot of the time maybe I was just sort of overwhelmed and kind of zoning out a bit from the world, I guess. As a teenager, I started to internalise more, but even as a teenager, I could still be quite kind of mischievous with my peers, quite kind of clown-like. I often used to be quite inappropriate in front of my peers, quite annoying actually. So I think, in a way, by taking control like that, by sitting in a driver's seat and in a way being very weird and kind of out there and rather outrageous in my behaviour at times, not usually in front of teachers. Teachers tended to see the more quiet, kind of withdrawn version of myself, but behind the scenes with other kids, I could be very mischievous and out there and wacky. I even once pulled my knickers down in front of a group of girls when I was like 15. That's what I mean. So I could be quite kind of like, inappropriate, doing things that other kids were like, what is going on here? This is weird, she's weird. And I think because of that, other kids did take a mickey out of me. Understandably, they took a mickey out of me, out of this weird, strange girl that I was. No one could quite make sense of who I was, so they took a mickey out of me. And I think, obviously, they did bully me. Yep, I remember often when I walked home from school, and I did write about this in my diary that I read out to the camera as well. There were a couple of girls who kind of, bullied me, kind of called me names and stuff. But they bullied me and took the mickey out of me because I was so weird. My behaviour was inappropriate. It didn't really affect me as such. I didn't go and brood on it. I didn't think, oh, woe is me, I'm being bullied, and get really down by it. I think, again, because I didn't really have that awareness, I didn't really think about it that much. So this is why this research interests me, because I would say my social skills at that age, let's put it this way, they were not good. I've got a bit more social skills and more awareness now. My social skills are still not great, because I still don't know how to make friends, but the difference between me now and me then is that now, as an adult, I have a lot more understanding and awareness of my differences. That awareness really set in my 20s, and sort of late, I guess, very end of my late teens. I first started to think, hang on a minute, I need to start controlling myself. And obviously, by the time I went to university, I was a lot more mature and a lot more collected. And of course, all of that behaviour, inappropriate behaviour, of course, stopped, because I suddenly became aware that actually this wasn't appropriate. But yeah, it does interest me. Maybe the very fact that I did not have great social skills, and the fact that I was quite out there and wacky and strange in my behaviour, actually maybe protected me against some of the worst of bullying. Because if the child themselves is kind of being extremely weird and outrageous, and at the same time laughing, because this is the thing, when other kids used to take a mickey out of me, I would be laughing, I would find it funny. I would almost be courting their mockery, in a sense. So, in a way, you kind of immediately, for bullies then, they don't have anything to hang on to, because a bully likes it when a child is whimpering or crying or running away. They don't expect a child to start laughing at their antics and to actually be cajoling them, in a sense, to be even more, to kind of bully them even more, in a sense. Because I found it funny. When kids took a mickey out of me, I'll be laughing, and then they'd be like, we're not laughing with you, they would say, we're laughing at you. I didn't know the distinction either. I thought, oh, they're laughing, that's good. And when they said that, I didn't get it. But like I said, I think that actually spared me against maybe the unhappiness that, say, more aware autistics experience. And I think obviously if that sort of behaviour had happened now as an adult, it would get me down. Because now as an adult, I do have that awareness. And now I'm almost hyper-aware, I've almost gone the other way. So now other people's comments and behaviours towards me really stress me out and can really make me feel quite down sometimes. But I didn't have that as a kid, and I think actually maybe the very fact I wasn't that aware actually was a good thing. So let me know what you think about that. And then so now we get to the chapter about adolescence on page 137, and this chapter is written by Gillian Looms, who's an autistic lesbian and also an academic. Gillian Looms, in this chapter, she describes how it's a common experience for autistics to consume autism-related discourses greedily as a means of building our identity. Yes, I can relate to that because around the time that I was getting diagnosed with autism, and immediately after my diagnosis, I literally read every single book there was on autism. I devoured them. It almost became an obsession because I really wanted to try and understand myself. I still do want to understand myself. I think this is an ongoing thing. When you grow up without understanding yourself, without knowing who you are, when you suddenly find out that there's a name for your differences, you really want to find out everything about it. And I was volunteering at the time at a local autism charity, and they had a whole sort of bookshelf, a little library dedicated to autism books. And I went to this autism charity every Friday to do some volunteering in the office there. And every week I took home a book or several books from their library, so let me take them home for free, to borrow them. And I devoured these books. I found them really, really interesting, all about history of autism and Asperger's and the differences between. I found it really fascinating. And on page 137, Gillian says, from our very earliest attempts at communication, we're often told that our sensory and emotional expressions are wrong. We are told that busy, loud environments that hurt every part of our bodies are fun. We are told that we are wrong. So yes, this is really harmful to your developing child's sense of self. And it's actually got a name. It's called gaslighting, something I've actually heard of only very recently, named after the film Gaslight, which I still actually want to see. But gaslighting is when another person makes you doubt your reality. So for example, say if you were to say, oh, it's too loud in here, this noise is really distracting, and they'll be like, what noise? It's not distracting, don't be so silly, I can't hear anything. So immediately they're discounting your reality, because to the other person, they might not hear anything, they might not notice anything. But that doesn't mean that your reality is not valid, it doesn't mean that you're imagining things, you hear what you hear. But by the other person saying that, you start to think, and if it's said to you often enough, it's a progressive thing. If they just say it once, you might think, oh yeah, and just shrug it off. But if this is constantly said to you and about everything you experience, you start to you start to actually believe them, and you start to think, maybe I'm imagining things, maybe I'm just too sensitive, maybe there's something actually wrong with me, and it can really actually start to affect your self-esteem. And obviously with autism, because our experiences are so different to like a majority, you're neurologically typical, I guess, majority, other people can find it really hard to understand our perceptions because they're so different to their experiences. So it's very easy for other people to actually dismiss our experiences because they can't make sense of them. So ironically, the non-autistic majority do show a lack of empathy towards the autistic experience. And yes, that comes under gaslighting. So again, of course, when we do find that there's a name for our experience, that is a valid, real thing, and actually we're not imagining it, and actually, this is because we're wired differently, it makes sense, obviously, that we're going to want to read everything we can about it. It's like a revelation, just to kind of validate our sense of self, And Gillian says that access to information about autism is crucial to the development of a sense of self, and that's why it's so important that children are given that timely diagnosis, and you shouldn't have to wait until you're an adult to receive a diagnosis, but all too common experience for people not to be diagnosed until adulthood. I guess I was quite lucky in that, okay, I was diagnosed as an adult at the age of 21, but at least I was diagnosed, just as I started out on adulthood, and, some people don't get diagnosed until, their 60s or 70s or even older. I can't imagine what that's like. Gillian says how it must not be dehumanising. The narratives that are consumed must not be dehumanising accounts of autism. That's really important. So she asked the question, what accounts, narratives are autistics consuming? It's important that we're not consuming narratives that are stereotypical, or that give wrong accounts of what autism is, or dehumanising narratives, because that, of course, then seeps into our sense of who we are and can be really, really damaging. Okay, so I'm going to move on to video number 2 to carry on this review. So moving on to video number 2 now.